Present. Count.
Present.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order.
Order. Count. Order. Count. Order. Count.
Let us pray. Eternal and loving God, we gather today to celebrate life, to celebrate its possibilities. We are grateful for your presence here with us. We are grateful for the Indiana State Police and their long and storied history. We are grateful for the recruit class that is here with us today. We are grateful for those who have trained them well. We ask your grace to abide with us now, that in this ceremony we will sense your presence. We ask for your courage to guide and direct these recruits and all members of law enforcement, that in all things they will feel your safety and protection. In all things they will work for justice and truth in our world. We ask these things with confidence. We ask these things with thanksgiving. Amen.
Please be seated. The Honorable Federal Judge David Hamilton, Chief Justice Randall Shepard, Superintendent Lloyd Jennings, Colonel James Hollingsworth, Lieutenant Colonels Larry Delaney and Jack Martin, Indiana Law Enforcement Academy Acting Director Charles Birch, Reverend Cannon, Secretary of the State Police Board James Heide, distinguished guests, fellow officers, families, and friends. It's proud for me to present to you the 53rd recruit class of the Indiana State Police. During the past 19 weeks, the members of this class excelled academically and physically. They have worked diligently to uphold the standards of excellence expected of them by receiving hundreds of hours of instruction, all designed to prepare them for their next training phase as probationary officers. This class excelled in numerous facets of their training, and everyone in this building and all families should be proud of their accomplishments and achievements, just as we are proud of each one of them. It is now my privilege to introduce to you the Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Lloyd R. Jennings. Lloyd R. Jennings was born June 14, 1942 in Converse, Indiana. He studied at the Northwestern Traffic Institute and later received both his Bachelor of Science and Master's degrees from Indiana University. From 1964 to 1974, he was a trooper at the Lafayette District. In 1975, he began moving through the ranks from sergeant in the Enforcement Division to lieutenant and assistant commander of the Motor Carrier Enforcement Section. Then he progressed to assistant commander of the Enforcement Division. Lieutenant Jennings later became captain and commander of the Motor Carrier Enforcement Section. He was then promoted to major as commander of the Records Division from 1981 to 1985. Over the next 3 years, he served as deputy superintendent for several divisions of the state police. He served first as lieutenant colonel and deputy superintendent for data and communications. His next position was as deputy superintendent for support services. Also during this time, he was acting deputy superintendent for special operations. The last responsibility he held before being appointed superintendent was deputy superintendent for field enforcement. On January 9, 1989, Lieutenant Colonel Lloyd R. Jennings was appointed superintendent for the Indiana State Police. Superintendent Jennings.
Good morning and welcome to the 53rd Indiana State Police Recruit Academy graduation. Today I've been given one of the most exciting and enjoyable tasks that any head of a police agency could ever hope to have, and that is to be given the privilege of welcoming these young recruits to the Indiana State Police Department. There are no words to really describe the feeling that I get when I stand before a graduating class. As I look at your faces, I see high hopes and great expectations. I see future police officers who will represent the Indiana State Police Department with pride and to strive to raise the standards of law enforcement to a new level of excellence. If it sounds like I'm placing an awful lot of responsibility and expectations on your shoulders, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. You might feel like that your development to this point in your career has not really reflected on the Indiana State Police Department. Well, it does, and today I am placing the responsibility for the future of this entire department and the future of law enforcement in general squarely on your shoulders. But why would a superintendent of state police make such a statement? After all, you're just getting started. You have not completed your first day in the field, so maybe I'm forcing this just a little bit too quick. Well, I say today you are officially to become an Indiana State Police trooper. And if you couldn't handle the pressure associated with that position, you wouldn't be here today. All of you are about to enter and become a part of a very special team, a family, a way of life. To be part of that family, you have to share an equal portion of the responsibility and the burden. It depends on your willingness to successfully complete all the tasks that stand ahead of you. Those of you who will make it will join the ranks of some of the finest officers you will find anywhere. You will enjoy a lifestyle that gives more satisfaction for a job well done than almost any other occupation in the world. And for you, this is just a start of something very, very special. The philosophy of the Indiana State Police Department Recruit Academy, excellence through discipline, has emphasized academic studies and the importance of self-discipline. These qualities will follow you throughout your lives. In the past, law enforcement has provided training at recruit levels, but unfortunately, we have not followed through and been able to provide the additional training that was needed. However, we will not let this happen to you. You have developed academic and self-discipline skills while at the academy. And we will help you through your careers, and we will provide you continuous training and education to keep these skills honed that you have gotten here at the academy. In addition to education, integrity is an important tool in effective law enforcement. Your level of self-discipline determines the quality of your moral character. Listen to this definition of integrity very closely and remember it. Firm adherence to a code of moral values, an unimpaired condition, incorruptibility. Remember that last word, incorruptibility. Your integrity balances on the top of every decision you will make as a police officer and as a person. One bad decision can ruin a reputation, a career, cause serious injury, and in our line of work, it can even cause a loss of a life. Your self-discipline should be a lifelong practice. A police officer also has to be a thinker. You will also need to listen well and observe details that other people will miss. You will need to nurture your level of tolerance and understand people from all walks of life and all different types of situations. You must be able to withstand verbal abuse from others without losing your cool. You must be able to stay in control at times when others are not. Develop verbal communication skills have been a large part of your training. A verbal exchange is naturally the first opportunity you'll have to avoid confrontation. A wise man once said, and I quote, "The best fight I ever was in was the one I was able to talk my way out of," end quote. When an officer is able to control a situation, but to avoid physical force in that situation, it's better for everybody that's involved. For those incidences when police officers have exhausted all avenues of peaceful confrontation and resolution, then you have to take the situation in hand, and that's certainly unavoidable. But your physical strength and conditioning will become your most valuable asset at that point. A healthy diet and regular physical training should be an ongoing part of an officer's daily routine. And when you get out there in the patrol car, that's going to be the most difficult thing for you to do. It began at the academy, but you must make sure it continues. The benefit of being in good shape are endless. Medical evidence should suggest that physical conditioning can increase an officer's chances of survival in a serious injury. In closing, I'd like for you to remember some of the things I've said. First of all, your mind, your body, and your training are the most important tools you have to build upon. Develop and use them to their fullest potential. This is the beginning of something very, very special for you. It's now up to you to be the best there is. Welcome to the Indiana State Police Department. It's now my privilege to introduce to you our speaker for today, the Honorable David F. Hamilton. He is the U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of Indiana. I first met Judge Hamilton when he was the legal counsel for the Governor of the State of Indiana, Evan Bayh. He served in that position from '89 to '91. He left state service, went into private practice for a few years, and in 1994 he was appointed to the U.S. judgeship by President Clinton. It is indeed my honor to present to you the Honorable David F. Hamilton.
Superintendent Jennings, thank you for that kind introduction. Chief Justice Shepard, Superintendent Jennings, leaders of the Indiana State Police, graduates of the Training Academy, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege to be here today to talk with you all. And I especially want to start out by congratulating all the graduates of the Academy for the achievement that is recognized today. I admire your dedication, your commitment to public service, and your courage. I also want to congratulate your families and friends who are here to support you. They also make a commitment to public service that is not recognized often enough, a sacrifice made by your family and your friends of privacy, sometimes income, and sometimes lost sleep. Today is a day to honor and congratulate all of you. I have to say in all candor that the invitation to speak today came out of the blue. I got to know Superintendent Jennings, as he mentioned, when I was with Governor By's staff when he took office. I joined his staff and often worked with the Indiana State Police on some problems and sought their help in some of the problems and challenges that I faced in my work. Our relationship might not have started out entirely comfortable, at least from Superintendent Jennings' point of view. My background was not in law enforcement. I had been in private practice, and I had been deeply involved in private practice in the work of the Indiana Civil Liberties Union. This was at a time when shortly after a man who later became Attorney General of the United States had attacked the American Civil Liberties Union as a, quote, criminal's lobby. This was not, as you might imagine, a promising foundation for a good working relationship, but Superintendent Jennings at least controlled his suspicions, and we managed together to work together just fine. I want to say that I admire and respect his leadership of the Indiana State Police for these past 7 years. Now, as you might imagine, a couple of people who heard that I would be talking with you all this morning thought this would be a golden opportunity for me to share with you my personal philosophy about traffic laws, speeding tickets, and the like, and the value of mercy. But that is not what I want to talk to you about this morning. Instead, this unexpected invitation has given me a reason to step back and reflect for a while about the role of police in our society, and also to reflect some on my responsibilities in the federal courts, which give me an opportunity to consider that role in some very specific and sometimes very difficult situations. I want to suggest that it's important for all of you to consider and study that role of police in our society as well, just as you study and practice the skills that you will need every day in the field. For that role, the role of the police in our society, is something that you individually will help shape every day that you're on the job. And I want to tell you why that role is so important, at least in my own opinion. As a nation, the United States of America has always had an uneasy relationship between citizens and the police. Think, for example, about the Fourth Amendment, which prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. That amendment and the exclusionary rule that is used to give it meaning are controversial today. They have always been somewhat controversial. Controversial enough that just last year, during a debate on a crime bill in Congress, a member of Congress proposed an amendment to the pending bill that quoted the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution word for word. The amendment was defeated. At the same time, all of us should remember that our country was founded in a rebellion against abusive police practices by Great Britain and its army in the colonies. Recall that the British used what were called writs of assistance. I may be going back a ways in some of our courses in American history, but bear with me for a moment. Those writs of assistance permitted general searches of any man's house to search for smuggled goods. An early statesman of our country named James Otis, back in 1761, was the Advocate General in the Massachusetts colony. He was called upon to help the Crown obtain and enforce these writs of assistance, and he refused and resigned in protest. He made a fiery speech against these writs of assistance, saying that a man's home is his castle, and called the writ of assistance the worst instrument of arbitrary power, the most destructive of English liberty. The man who became our second president, John Adams, attended this speech, and many years later, long after the Declaration of Independence, which he helped write, after the American Revolution, the ratification of our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Mr. Adams' service as president, he wrote this about James Otis and the writs of assistance. Every man of a crowded audience appeared to me to go away as I did, ready to take arms against writs of assistance. Then and there was the first scene of the first act of opposition to the arbitrary claims of Great Britain. Then and there the child independence was born. In 15 years, namely in 1776, he grew up to manhood and declared himself free. That tells you something about the roots of the Fourth Amendment. Similarly, the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination and our right to trial by jury in this country have deep roots in the American Revolution and earlier as means for preventing the abuse of government power in general and police power in particular. This tension continues in the headlines today, as you all know. The tension between demands for law and order and attacks on our police. It's important to think about these issues because I want to suggest that the police in a society define the civilization in a very basic way. Police work, it seems to me, is work for people who are, if not overly optimistic, certainly realistic about the flaws in human nature. For we as citizens ask all of you in our police force to deal with the darkest sides of human behavior. How we do that and how you do that says a lot about the humanity of our society. In late 20th century America, all of us are very familiar with the idea of a police force like the Indiana State Police, one that is professionally trained, as you have been, one that is answerable to elected officials, one that is subject to constitutional restraints, and one that is yet effective in protecting us against the darker side of human behavior and against, at its worst, anarchy. We take this kind of police force for granted in our society, but we should not. And my opportunity to reflect on the role of police in our society has caused me to think carefully about just how fortunate we are in our society in the way that we handle the police functions, and to remember how delicate our freedom is in the balance between what we call totalitarian police states and anarchy on the other hand. If we forget the role of police and how delicate that balance is, we can lose our balance and slip toward either one of those disastrous extremes. Let your minds travel the globe for a moment and you'll see what I mean. Consider a few police forces in recent history to realize how special you are and how fortunate our society is. Think of the Committee for State Security in what was once the Soviet Union. That police force is better known to us by its initials, the KGB. Consider the State Security Police of East Germany, better known as Stasi, which had virtually one half of the population spying on the other half for decades. Closer to home, consider the tradition, if I may call it that, of the Tonton Macoute in Haiti. Instruments of a, quote, police force, not one that we would recognize, but one that became an instrument of terror used to defeat civilian rule and democratic governments. And back a few decades in history to the secret state police, known in German by the title Geheim Staatspolizei, and better known to us all today as the Gestapo. These police forces were not part of democratic governments, not subject to obey the law themselves, and not subject to constitutional restraints. If we review only this side of the story, the police sound like a pretty dangerous group of folks. But I want to also look at the other side of the picture, at societies where there is no effective police force, and several come to mind from recent headlines. Think of what we all saw in Somalia, a country that was fought over and starved and impoverished by local warlords where there was no effective law and order. Think of Rwanda, where ethnic hatred spilled over last year and overcame all traces of civilization and law and order resulting in mass killings of hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children. Even in Russia, one of the great civilizations of the world, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia now suffers from the absence of a truly effective police force. All of us get frustrated in our country with a legal system that often seems too slow, too expensive, too fallible. But to help us remember how fortunate we are with our police force and our legal system, let me summarize for you some information in a recent New York Times article about what may euphemistically be called alternate dispute resolution in Russia today. There's a crime epidemic in Russia now. There is a market economy, but one that has developed without an effectively working legal system and police force. Instead, what we have is a mob-ruled system of enforcement. It would be a mistake to call it anything that we would recognize as law enforcement. When a dispute arises between businesses in the new market economy, for example, it is resolved usually now in a meeting called a razborka. In a razborka, a mafia leader presides in a meeting in a shadowy warehouse in a deserted part of town. Each side of the dispute brings its, quote, security agents to the meeting. First, the businessmen involved each tell their side of a story to somebody that we might call a judge, but who is really a mafia chieftain. Then the security agents talk with each other. Picture this scene now. Usually they reach an agreement. That sometimes happens in our courts, as we know. If they don't reach an agreement, the judge orders one side to pay up. This is a little bit different then, because if one side doesn't pay up, or God forbid, forgot to bring its own security agents and doesn't pay up, guns come out. And it's usually all over in a matter of seconds, and the strong have resolved their dispute at the expense of the weak. That is one alternative to a legal system. And lest we compliment ourselves too much, we all need to remember that human beings can and have resolved disputes that way. These lessons from around the world, from both sides, tell us both how fortunate we are and how important it is for us to maintain a balance between an effective police force and one that recognizes that it too is subject to the laws that it enforces. All of us see that in headlines every day. We see it in court cases. I see it in court cases complaining that the police have violated the law as they investigate and try to prosecute crimes. It may not seem fair to you all as new state police troopers sometimes, for the bad guys, by definition, are breaking those very same rules that you all have to follow, and it sometimes may seem to you as if the law-abiding citizens are asking you to fight on our behalf with one hand tied behind your backs as you deal with criminals who threaten all of us. I have a role in that balance now. You all know and have learned that citizens have the right to sue, often in federal court, if they believe they've been deprived of constitutional rights. A lot of people bring those lawsuits, and often they bring them against the police. But I believe, and I hope you agree, that the threat of such lawsuits is not nearly as effective in maintaining the balance I've talked about, that balance that avoids anarchy on the one hand and totalitarianism on the other. It is not nearly as effective as the understanding and wisdom that each of you will bring to the situations that you will face every day in the field. In those lawsuits, which I will see, the jury or I winds up acting as a kind of a backstop. You may well be tempted to say, not as a backstop, but as some kind of Monday morning quarterback when serious problems arise in confrontations between police and citizens. I hope all of you understand that the rules of law for dealing with these cases recognize the difference between being on the spot when a police officer needs to make split-second decisions in what can be very dangerous situations, you all have been trained for them, and being in a courtroom a year or two later when everything seems safe and calm and the terror of the moment has passed. I hope you keep that in mind. We certainly try to. Our system of justice, however, is fallible. It is built upon an assumption of frailty, human frailty, at every level, recognizing that police officers, prosecutors, juries, and judges all make mistakes. But I hope you all understand that those of us at the later stages in the justice system work hard at remembering how difficult your job is. One symbol of how important police work can be appeared in the headlines this week. All of us, I think, have been grateful for the movement toward peace in the Middle East over the last 2 or 3 years, a part of the world where warfare and hatred have seemed permanent to those of us living in the late 20th century. Perhaps they still are, but there are signs of hope there. This is a week when we think of Bethlehem, and when Israel this week turned over control of Bethlehem to the Palestine Liberation Organization. What was the symbol to mark that event? Well, it involved the police. It was the change in the flag flying over the police station in that small and ancient city at the heart of a story of hope and peace. That was the symbol for peace and perhaps a justice that can lead to a lasting peace in the Middle East. In talking with you this morning about how important your work is, I can't let this opportunity to speak go by without recognizing the courage of Trooper Sean O'Keefe, who just a few days ago showed all of us the finest traditions of courage, selflessness, as he rescued a little girl from a fiery car crash in northern Indiana. Trooper O'Keefe risked his own life. He hurt himself in a desperate race against time to save that little girl. Just last year, he was sitting where you're sitting, graduating from this school. When he was asked about what he had done, he said he simply did what he was trained to do. That trooper is an extraordinary example of what we expect, or at least hope for, from our police officers. It exemplifies a great tradition that you join. The police force that you join today is part of a thin line that protects all of us from the worst elements of human nature. The powers that you will exercise in your new jobs are powers that require a delicate balance to avoid anarchy on the one side and totalitarianism on the other. As citizens, we entrust to you today our safety and at the same time our freedom. That's an important job, a difficult job, one that requires great skill, dedication, and courage. My congratulations to you all, my thanks to you all, and Godspeed.
The time that all these recruits have been waiting for has finally arrived. It's time to swear them in as our newest Indiana State Police officers. And to do that for us is the Honorable Randall T. Shepard, the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court of Indiana.
It is a genuine pleasure to be invited to swear in the 53rd class. The members of the Indiana Judiciary welcome all of you to your role as public officers, and we wish that you have a long and satisfying and successful career as members of the Indiana State Police Force. I ask now that the class stand and raise your right hand and repeat after me to take the oath of office. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend.
I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America
And the Constitution and laws of the State of Indiana.
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Indiana
Against all enemies, foreign or domestic.
against all enemies, foreign or domestic.
And that I will faithfully and justly discharge the duties
I will faithfully and justly discharge the duties
of an officer of the Indiana State Police Department,
of an officer of the Indiana State Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. You may be seated.
It's been a tradition over the past few years to give out a Superintendent's Award. This award is given annually to the recruit with the best overall performance in the class. To determine this rating, the recruits are scored in the following categories: academics, firearms, emergency driving, defensive tactics, physical training, and merit. This year's award recipient is Walter Kaler. Walter Kaler. The next award is the John E. Hatfull Memorial Award. Sergeant Hatfull was killed in the line of duty on April 13, 1987 in Posey County, Indiana. He was leading an emergency response team in the apprehension of an armed suicidal subject when he was shot. Sergeant Hatfull had been a team leader on the emergency response team since 1975. He was a member of the state pistol team and an avid shooter, including competition at the Olympic trials. The John E. Hatfull Award is presented to the recruit with the best overall shooting proficiency in the class. It is my privilege to call Mrs. Mickey Hatfull and her son Jay forward to present the award.
On behalf of my father, Johnny Hatfull, I would like to present the Outstanding Shooting Award to an officer who has been assigned to the Lafayette Post. Congratulations from my family to Dennis J. Wade. Thank you.
We will now present the members of the class with their Indiana State Police badges, identifications, oaths of office, and their law enforcement training board certificates of graduation. Anyone in the audience who would like to take photographs at this time may do so. We would just ask that you not block the procession right in front of the stage. Matthew K. Ames. Scott B. Andrews. Larry K. Antic. Thomas J. Arvin. Jennifer E. Barnes. Brenton S. Bible. Matthew J. Bilkey. Mitchell A. Blocker. Carrie A. Bricker. Lawrence E. Brown. Scott A. Brown. Walter S. Kaler. Richard V. Cool. Aaron D. Correll. Evan W. Davis. Mark A. Day. Anthony L. DeLello. Thomas J. DeVries. Chad D. Dick. His badge will be presented by his father, Sergeant Rick Dick of Lowell District. Brian K. Elmore. Anthony J. Farrell. Anthony E. Garrett. Gerald K. Gentry. Gregory A. Grove. Ann M. Hampton. Daniel L. Heron. His badge will be presented by his brother, Trooper Investigator Jeff Heron of the Putnamville District. Trevor L. Helmer. Christopher L. Hill. Kevin J. Hobson. Jason R. House. Jerome Johnson Bay. Daniel G. Jones. William H. Jones III. Timothy L. Keller. Jan M. Cruzy. David C. Kuhn. Melinda J. Lahr. Jody L. Lyle. R. Grant Martin. Mick D. McClanahan. Todd N. McComas. Michael A. McCormick. His badge will be presented by his father, Master Trooper Michael McCormick from the Lafayette District. Timothy A. McCormick. Jeffrey C. McLaughlin. Charles R. McKee. Brian M. Metcalf. David M. Meyer. Kevin L. Miller. Sidney W. Newton. John M. Pang. Roland R. Purdy. David H. Kalkenbush. Rich A. Reynolds. William G. Rieger. Scott B. Roberts. Richard T. Roseberry. June M. Schmelzer. David L. Schneider. James S. Semester, Jr. Brad D. Schultz. Daniel D. Sims. Andrew T. Smith. Terry L. Spence. His badge will be presented by his uncle, retired Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Spence. Julia L. Stamper. Richard L. Strong. Roy M. Stuckey. George M. True. His badge will be presented by his father, Master Trooper George True of the Sellersburg District. Christopher N. Waddell. Dennis J. Wade. Todd A. Wallace. William L. Walls II. His badge will be presented by his father, Captain William Walls, Area 4 Commander. Peter B. Wood. Jeremy T. Woods. Chad C. Woody. John G. Young. Jeffrey M. Zeiger. Please join me. Let's give them all a hand, please. The 53rd class will participate in this ceremony by having a representative elected by their classmates to address the assembly. I now introduce to you Trooper Scott Andrews. Trooper Andrews.
Some 4½ months ago, on a hot August day, the members of the 53rd Recruit Class walked through the front doors of the Indiana State Police Academy with high hopes, a little fear, and much anticipation of the things in which they would soon be involved. At that point in time, graduation day was just a dream, a long day in the future. Now suddenly it seems that day has arrived. As I look back over the past months, I have many vivid memories that I'm sure are shared with my class members. From our first early morning physical training session, our first military formations, or sitting in the bleachers that first morning, sitting there looking at the other cadets, wondering who they were, where they were from, listening to our commander tell us how our lives would be for the next 4.5 months. I'm sure many of us were thinking, what have I gotten myself into? Others were probably thinking, this is only 1 semester long, so it's going to be a little bit tougher than college, but only 1 semester. Others with a military or prior police background thought, man, here we go again. I recall that this group of total strangers formed itself into a team in a very short period of time, which to me is a small miracle considering how diverse our backgrounds are. We have truck drivers, military officers, factory workers, an engineer, a biochemist, and even a former professional basketball player. We range in age from 21 to 43 years old. We come from Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Texas, California, and New York. My class members wanted me to tell you how we became such a tight group and overcame this diversity. I thought about this long and hard, and all I could think about was 2 things. First of all, we all wanted to learn, and we wanted to be one of Indiana's finest. Over the last 19 weeks, we have learned many things. We've spent countless hours in the classroom studying criminal law, traffic law. We've spent many hours on the range, in good weather and bad, learning how and when to shoot. We've been taught to defend ourselves and taught how to drive. We've learned how to talk to the media and to the citizens that we will encounter. Some of us have even learned how to swim, which is good considering where part of this class is going. We have learned so much, in fact, that when you couple that with our intelligence and our common sense, we now have the ability to make sound judgments and decisions that will affect other people's lives. We have also learned to never give up. Many times in physical training, after running 25, 30 minutes, we would hear those words, winner sits. We'd line up for the sprints. After the first 4, you'd feel like you were going to be exhausted. But you never, never gave up. You always had a little bit more to give. Someday that attitude will help us apprehend a suspect that we are trying to catch. I would like to close by thanking those who trained us. There are so many that I can't begin to name them all, but we are forever indebted. When I sat down to write this speech, everybody in the class wanted me to say one thing to you, our family and friends. They wanted me to say thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Because without you and your support on a day-to-day basis, we could not have lasted 19 weeks. You are not only our physical support, but also our motivation. We wanted to do well for you and do well by you. When we look at what we've accomplished, we're the proudest group of people on the face of this earth. That we could not have achieved what we have without the support and guidance of many people. As we stand at the threshold of a new chapter in our lives and look forward to new challenges and accomplishments, we know that we must never, never quit. Thank you. God bless.
How do you follow that? I'd like to take this opportunity, however, to recognize our training division staff and those responsible for the training in this 53rd Recruit Academy. As I call your name, if you'd please stand. Sergeant Dave Benjamin, the Recruit Academy Commander. Sergeant Gary Dudley, Recruit Academy Assistant Commander. We also have Sergeant Joe Wiley from the Academy staff as well as the division. I'd like to recognize the counselors who are here today. Trooper Mike Shelton, Trooper Tana Summers, Trooper Tommy Walker, Trooper Pat Warzinski, and Trooper Scott Solers. And they've put in a lot of dedicated time and effort to train these young folks, and we certainly appreciate your effort. I'd now like to recognize our State Police Board members who are here today as part of our distinguished guests. Secretary James Heide and his wife Layla, Board Member George Gardner and his wife Linda. Thank you very much for being here, gentlemen. Other members of our executive staff, Colonel James P. Hollingsworth, Lieutenant Colonels Larry Delaney, and Lieutenant Colonel Jack Martin. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. I'd also like to recognize Acting Deputy Director Charles Birch from the Law Enforcement Academy. And I'd like to thank our Speaker, Federal Judge David Hamilton, and Chief Justice Shepard. I'll be calling Reverend Cannon forward to give the invocation here in just a second. Reverend Cannon this year is filling in for Father Cooley, who many of you know has been stricken with that dreaded disease, cancer. And he didn't know that I was going to do this, but I'd like to take just a moment to take just 15 seconds or so of silence for Father Cooley at this time of the year. Please bow with me. Thank you. Reverend Cannon.
Let us pray. Lord, this is a day of new beginnings, a day where possibilities loom large. For these people who a short while ago were simply recruits but are now state police officers, help them to remember that they can make a difference, that their actions, their attitudes, and their very lives do account for great things. Help their families to know this day that your presence is with them because they are doing what is right and just. Help these families to know that you are a God who honors justice. And help us to all remember that we never go alone. We have the family that we share. We have the state police family, which we celebrate today. And we always go in your grace and in your protection. Let us go this day into this world in that knowledge and that assurance. And may God bless each and every person here. And may God bless the Indiana State Police. Amen.
You should be proud of the accomplishments of these new troopers. With your support, they have the potential for a long and fulfilling career with the Indiana State Police. And remember, as police officers, we hope to uphold the noble tradition of this profession and department as a calling for each one of us toward commitment to duty, to state, to country, and to family. This will conclude our graduation ceremony. I would ask that The audience stand for the withdrawal of the colors and the class. Please stand.
Present. Arms. Turn colors. Order. Arms. Order. Arms. Over. Fist. Over.